on, I'm sorry, put me on 19. It's 19, I'm sorry. I said 18. Huh?
That one should be 19, I think.
That one 19? Let's see. Yeah, I think it is.
John did it, so it's got to be right.
Yeah, that's 19. There it is. Yeah, that's it. It don't say it, does it? I'm kind of, senior saints get confused at times. By the way, all of you do. All right. Well, we're looking at chapter number 19, and the thing that stands out to me on that chapter, and that's what I was mentioning, I was right on my thinking, I just was wrong on the chapter. The thing that stands out to me mostly is in chapter 19. Of course, there's 3 questions that the Lord answers. But one that stands out most to me, that's the chapter on the family. The Lord expounds on the truths about the family. When they come to Him and ask Him, let's see now if I can move forward here. I'm not working here. Let's see. I am on. I got power. Let's see. Well, there you go. There you go. There it comes up, chapter 19. And tell you where I'm at. I have to have everybody to keep it where I'm at. All right, chapter number 19. But the 3 questions ahead, he departs from Galilee and he finishes his saying, which is his proclamations. He arrived at the coast of Jubilee by Jordan, and that's the first a few verses. Follow him in the hill, and then upon arrival, he's asked 3 important questions. Now, the one that we spent some time on last week was a question about relationships. And that's where they asked him, and it's kind of funny, back in that day, and probably back in the early days of America, it was, back in that day for the Jew, the man put away his wife. I don't think the wife could divorce her husband. Y'all agree with that? But they want to know, can we put away, can a man put away his wife for every cause? Now the answer for that in our day is no fault divorce, right? And I love President Reagan, one of the best presidents we had.
Yeah. But
he'd been divorced 2 or 3 times, and he was a proponent of the no fault divorce. Good morning, dear. I don't like you. I want a divorce. Back in my day, it had to be adultery. You could get a divorce. The judge would grant or not grant a divorce. And you had to have grounds for divorce, and that grounds back in that day, and they took this passage. Now, actually, though, if you look at that passage, it doesn't say except for adultery. What does it say? Except for fornication. If a man was going to marry a woman and thought she was chaste and pure and found out she wouldn't, he could set aside the marriage. Fornication is premarital. And adultery is committed once you get married. Then he talks about if he married, puts her aside, then he marries again, he commits, So adultery is stepping outside the marriage boundaries. The other one is premarital. So it would seem, Brother Jim, to me, that I believe in the King James Bible, and they thought that the word fornication was the first one and the second one. So it really doesn't say the grounds was adultery. The grounds were if you thought she was marrying a pure woman, she wasn't pure, you could set aside the marriage. And so it's sticky. Now, a lot of people have gone through divorce. They're super people. Probably the best work from God in the church. It doesn't end your life no more than telling a lie. I mean, sin is sin. But my advice, Miss Jean, has always been to people who, first of all, there's some great people. What does a woman do when a husband leaves her for another woman? She's 22, she's got 2 kids. Stay single without anyone? And probably not, right?
take all his money.
Make him pay heavy child support. So what I'm saying, some of our best workers and best people in the church have unfortunately gone through it. But now, so I'm back in the day, Miss Jennifer, it was so bad. When a home broke up, the whole community grieved. I mean, it was. And if you moved in with a woman you wasn't married to, you was scum, a bunch of heathens. However, back in our day, in all honesty, Jim, the man, he just sold his wild oats if he was, if he was involved in fornication, but it wasn't a woman. She's scum. She's cheap.
Yeah.
So really, but society standards has nothing to do with Bible standards. Well, it should be based on the Bible, but just because society permits it to say it's okay, it wasn't okay either way. And what would happen, do y'all think, to the abortion rate if no one committed fornication. I believe it would go down by half.
Yeah.
Of course, my thing, and what my curious about is, if you, man, now the woman ends up with, you know, she's expecting, she doesn't want the baby, she's insecure, so she's taught to abortion, which is still wrong. But my thing is, if a man, the daddy of that child's paternity test is done, he'd either go to jail or pay child support that child who's 18. That would cut the abortion rate in half. The man footloose and fancy free.
Yeah.
Then the woman told it's not really a child. Well, of course it is a child, and you know, that's a bad thing. But the question about relationships, but what was interesting here is how the Lord answered it. Now He gives us a really good lesson on marriage and what marriage is. By the way, that's traditional marriage. So first thing we see, well, we see the question about relationship, question about religion, and question about rewards. Now I'm going to take you to the first section. Relationship, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife every cold? That was the question. Miss Andrew didn't make me a good breakfast, right? Let's see if I can read your mind. You should think like that.
You'd be making your own.
Yeah, well, I was saying, Brother Melvin, you lucky to have that woman, and you're right. You're right. Is it lawful to put away his wife for every cause? And then, and he talked about two things, which was kind of, to me, unique. And I hadn't really studied it out before, but the first was the marriage relationship. For this cause, so a man, you know, the marriage was instituted in Genesis 2:19. He's quoting, haven't you read? What does the Bible say? The Creator created them. He made them, male and female. And they told them before, but really, isn't it amazing that a man and woman can marry and have children? I'm always amazed. I was amazed when Sarah was expecting Jackson. And all of a sudden, here's this really unique human being, and he's unique. There's only one Jackson.
Yeah.
He's up there with his microphone. And if he wants to go to the nursery, he knows exactly where that nursery is. And then you got Cooper come along. But, you know, out of that relationship come these amazing people. Isn't that something, though? I mean, your children and our grandchildren. But God would do that. I stand amazed each time. And you got to think about how many working parts on a human being. Hundreds and hundreds besides the main systems. So that is just a unique, miraculous, every baby's a miracle.
Yeah.
And so you have a marriage relationship, and that's defined as a civil union between a man and a woman. They are married. Brother Danny's married people I have by authorized by the state of Georgia. I now pronounce you man and wife. And it's, first of all, it's a biblical principle, and it is a law. The second, that's the marriage relationship. Let's see what I've got here. And then the marriage relationship. The marriage relationship. Now, one of the things I just briefly mentioned in passing, now we've had the Supreme Court say that same-sex marriage. Let me ask you, Brother Jim, how many people do we see men to go to the altar and get married? No. Men of our age, Brother Jim, was smarter than men today. Well, anyway, Brother Danny didn't see that either. So we've got to, but what they were trying to do, these men were going to unite, like, you know, I would have rather, and I don't agree with it, it's totally outside the Bible and it's wrong, but to me, I would have called it civil union. That protects their rights, just like a marriage would. They buy property together, they're protected. But I mean, if he was going to do such a thing, I wouldn't call it marriage. And it's not really. It's not in the biblical concept at all. Marriage, it's a sin. A marriage has a husband and a wife. Doesn't have two wives, doesn't have two husbands. Now what they literally have is a partner, a civil union partner. From the law side, from the Bible, it's all sin. And ask the people of Sodom and Gomorrah how they work for them. You cannot be a fundamental Christian. I don't believe, you can believe in God, but I don't believe you really can embrace Christian concepts in the Bible and be, you know, and embrace homosexuality. First of all, it's unbiological, it's unbiblical. And you can't do it. But it's just not. We just talk about how amazing God made a man and a woman. Two men can never have offspring, and neither can two women. So But the marriage relationship, we've got, like I say, we went into an area that no one would, I would never dream this would happen. That men would be married men and women married women. But they do. So, now can you imagine being a minister, somebody comes to Brother Danny to me and say, we want you to marry us. You say, no.
Never happened.
And they will say, we see you in court. Now, Brother Danny, you let them get by with it, but if you're a justice of the peace, they go, and they have had some Christians that got carried to court. You can say, well, no, that's against my faith. And I think Brother Danny or I could get by with it. So there is the marriage relationship, and he talks about that in detail. And then he talks about, what we go down to the part about eunuchs. Well, go down to verse 10. He said, the disciples said to him, if the case of a man be so with his wife, is not good marriage. What Jesus was saying is, fellas, God never intended for that to happen. And then he put some real restrictions on it. And they said, boy, if it's so bad to get out of a marriage, if you can't, or if it's so bad to get out of a marriage, wouldn't it be better for a man just to get, by the way, you notice how they said that? It wouldn't be better if a woman never got married. You'd think they might have politically favored the man over the woman, but it doesn't say, But then Jesus goes into this, wants to ask him better not to marry, and that's a unmarried or a marriage person, single person, never been married. He said to them, all men cannot receive this saying to whom it's given. Then he says something real strange in this verse. There are some eunuchs which were born so from mothers womb, others made eunuchs, and then he said others of men and others who voluntarily. But I define the eunuch here as a person who has no physical interest in the opposite sex. Some people want that way. Do you know some women or some men that just wasn't interested in opposite sex? Back in our day, they grew up old bachelors. They didn't date. And oftentimes, Brother Jim, two men might move in together, share a space, but they were not physically interested in each other. That was just two friends living together, and the old maids lived together. And really, it's kind of amazing. Back in our day, a lot of the old maids ended up being school teachers, didn't they? Old maid school teachers. And by the way, but there's just some people. So the Lord does deal with those people who remain single. And one was choosing to remain single, because Paul said if a man has a wife, then he has to spend a lot of attention taking care of his wife. But if he chooses to remain single for ministry's sake, then he can have more time for ministry. So that is an exception that Jesus actually confirmed. Okay? So that was the first question. The second question was about religion. And the question was, what good thing must I do that I may inherit eternal life? Verse 16, and behold, one came and said unto him, good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said to him, why callest thou me good? There's none good but God. But if I will enter into life, keep the commandments. Now, the Lord is strategically, well, I've been told this, and I don't really mean to make this comparison. The Lord does things strategically. And one of the things they say about Donald Trump, he does. He does some crazy, I like Donald Trump. I don't like his behavior. Yeah. But he does some crazy things.
Yeah.
But a lot of times what he does, he'll do this to get this to happen.
Yeah, right.
So he's strategic. And the Lord, I'm not really making comparison, but I'm making comparison to methodology. The Lord uses a strategy here to reveal this man what's wrong. And this is his strategy. He said, why cause good and none good but God? Keep the commandments. And he said unto him, and Jesus said, thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and mother, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now here's what I call in this feats of religion, that's doing, okay? And what shall I do? So let me tell you what to do. Here's the amazing thing to me. They are what I call, and I don't think I have them listed here, but the mentioned commandments. Now, if you look at those commandments, let me look at my paper here that I got this outline on. If you look at those commandments, he doesn't mention every commandment. Did y'all notice that? Y'all know the 10 commandments, and he does not mention all of the 10 commandments.
Right.
So, this man, he said, thou shalt commit no murder, no adultery, not steal, bear false witness, honor your father and mother, love your neighbor as yourself. And I said, well, I've done these. But that should have set off sirens and bells in this man's head. He knows the Ten Commandments, right? What about the missing commandments? Not one thing said about God. None of the commandments, not even honoring the Sabbath. You know, these things should have been. This should have set off an alarm. He didn't say, "Thou shalt have not any gods before me, other gods. Thou shalt not make graven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God. Remember the Sabbath, keep it holy, and thou shalt not covet." Now, that I should not covet, especially so that it had nothing to, it wasn't the commandments about God. It was one of the commandments about me, and one of the latter commandments. Why did he leave it out? What is usually a rich person's problem? What do? They covet. Oh, he got a new house, I got to have a new house. Of course, in our day and age, we, even our middle class says, well, keeping up with the Joneses is what it's called. Buying stuff. So Jesus didn't mention that commandment because that commandment he had not kept. I don't believe it's gene from his youth up. He liked stuff, and he's going to prove it. I love stuff. I like my house. I like my car. I like my Rolex watch. I like. And Jesus didn't mention that commandment. Do y'all like me? Do you think if you mention, the preacher got up and said, "Let me give you commandments," and he did not mention any of these commandments? Probably some of y'all was like, "Brother Danny, I'm confused. You mentioned 5 of the commandments, and added into that, love thy neighbor as thyself, but you never mentioned any commandment about God. What's wrong with you, preacher?" You know, some would have said it that way, Brother Danny. You've always got that person that's gentle and kind. Have you lost your mind? But this young man should not have alerted him if he was truly this great young man that he said he was. Evidently, these commandments that were missing was one he had not kept from his youth up. This was his problem. So we see his feats of religion, which is the mention commandments and missing commandment. So here are these feats. Then we see a second thing about this young man, not only the feats of religion and the commandments mentioned, the missing commandments. See, what should that have done? It should have alerted this man. Well, wait a minute, what about the other commandments? There's your problem, son. You do not have a relationship with God. You're a commandment keeper, but you don't have a relationship with God. But he did not mention that. But then we see the faith of religion, verse 20 to 26. Verse 20 to 26 tells us, then came to him the mother of, 20 to 26. The young man said to him, "All these things have I kept from my youth up, what lack I yet?" Okay? And he said, "If I would be perfect, go sell all that I have, go to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me." But when the young man heard these things, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Now what the Lord was saying, get rid of your stuff. What stuff was this God? Right? Yeah. He put stuff ahead of God. What Jesus said, go ahead and get rid of everything you got, and trust me. Trust me. Oh, no, I can't trust you. I love my stuff. I'm not getting. Now, I see some of you men. Now, we want to give this a hard young man trouble. Most of us young men like pickup trucks. And I expect a lot of us, if we had money, Brother Danny, would have a new pickup truck of the make and model we want to use. And if the Lord said, "Come and get rid of your truck and come and follow me," a lot of us would say, "My truck?" You know? So come on. By the way, the truck's a good one because I saw John's truck. We talked about how nice it looked, Brother John. The old truck he had painted up. Is that your truck out there? I think it is. Yeah, a nice looking truck. So we can kind of identify with that. But this man lacked faith, and that's people who have a lot of material goods. I guess they don't feel like they need the Lord. By the way, if you say to me, "Well, I made it rich," we've got a president, we've got a payment, that's not a strong point making me want to vote for you. But I don't think you have a clue for most of America, for most of us in the state of the country. How many of these men do you think when they pull up the gas pump say, "Oh, I don't care if it's $100 a gallon. They got money to burn. So they have a hard time. Jesus said it's harder for a rich man to go to heaven, to go into the kingdom, than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Now, Brother Danny, I'm told there was a gate that was called that. You know, it wasn't a needle like a needle and thread. I don't know. I hadn't researched it. That the camel would have to get down and crawl through, just about to go through a small gate. And that sounds like, I'm not sure in that day that needles had eyes, but it must have, because the same as in there. And I think about metal needles with the eye. They had some way to push the thread on there, I'm sure. So we finally, this young man had trouble with faith, and Jesus said, it's just when you're rich, you have a hard time trusting me. You can't trust in riches and trust in God at the same time. You can have riches. You can have them, but you can't trust them. So that was and the third question is one about rewards, and it's kind of a funny one to me. We find it in, let's see, verses 27 through 30. Then answered Peter, said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? Jesus said to them, Verily I say to you, they which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of glory, you shall sit upon the 12th throne, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Now every one that hath forsaken house or brother, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, land for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting love. But the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And that's kind of amazing to me. I hope you got a sense of humor. Jesus has just, quote unquote, rebuked this man who idolized his stuff, right? And the disciples say, what stuff are we going to get? Come on, what have you been doing? They asked about stuff. What are we going to get out of this? What shall we receive? I think, Brother Tony, I can say if he give you nothing, but he died on the cross and gave you himself. If he gave you nothing, he gave you gracious plan. Now, he does give us a lot of stuff, don't he?
Yes. Amen.
He does. We enjoy, we live, the poor in America live better than some of the middle class in other countries. Usually in other countries, you either got wealthy and absolutely poverty-stricken. Us, we've got the big middle. We really enjoy, because of capitalism, the chance, every man in America has a chance, woman has a chance to make a good living. So here we find this man, and why don't we second off Father Day, what should we do therefore? And then we find, and the first thing he offered positions to, he said, well, now fellas, let me tell you what you're going to get out of it. You're going to be placed in positions of authority. You're going to rule when I come back on these 12 tribes. That's pretty good. It's kind of like me saying, Brother Melton, in the hereafter we're going to have in the United States, you're going to be able to go. That's a pretty good position, isn't it? Go. You know, I'm going to keep it. You're going to rule over one of the states. You'll be the governor of the state. Well, so that's a pretty good reward to me. I'm going to give you positions of authority. But then he talks about, the second thing he talks about is possessions in abundance, 29 and 30. Look at 29 and 30. It says there, well, I'm going to go to 29 especially. Everyone that's forsaken me, houses or brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers or wives or children or lands, for my sake shall receive 100-fold. 100-fold? Now, how many of you ever heard of prosperity preachers? They'll use this real good. And it says somewhere, 100-fold is like, if you'll send me $1,000, God's going to send you 100-fold. That's 100,000. So these people send the money. Can I say, if you got money to give to the work of God, give it to your local church. Tithe. Then, above your tithe, as the Lord leads. I think greed leads when you think, well, Brother Tommy said, Brother, give me $100 this week, I'll give you 1,000 next week. I'd be scraping up 100 probably, right? If I told Brother Tommy that, he said, yeah, Brother, he's thinking about new clothes for the kids, you know. So we all got, but Jesus said, you're going to have wealth beyond repair in the hereafter. You're going to live far beyond the standard of living. Just like, and to top it off, eternal life. What do I get out of this? I mean, God's going to richly bless us Christians. Now, we may not have enjoyed, Miss Jean, some of the things, but I don't know. There's not many people that can handle money. Have y'all noticed when poor people win the lottery, they usually get divorced and go broke? They don't know how to handle that. If somebody gave you, Brother Tony, $100 million right now, I hope it wouldn't hurt you, but it could. Now, my problem is, at my age, somebody give me $100 million, I probably wouldn't even hold any of it. If I went and looked at my automobile, I'd like to have a new truck. If I went and looked at a new truck, they wanted $80,000. I'd say, you are crazy. I don't care if I have $100 million. I am not spending that. I'm like John. I'm frugal. John wouldn't either. He's got that truck out there, and he'd probably buy a new truck, pay cash for it. Well, he could have before he got married. Now he probably could not. But he just had his truck painted, and John's pretty happy with that truck, wasn't you, John? It works good. But sure, we're going to reap great reward. Now, let me go ahead. Now, John, you going to help me out here just a minute? We'll fill out this. We're in good shape to do this. Running well. Well, that's a great chapter. And I think, let's see, John, I got my roll on there with me, all right? And we'll look at that right quick. Okay, John, thank you. Now, the next one here somewhere. Here it is. There you go. How about that one? How about me?
How about going slower?
Go slower. I can do that, Miss Jean.
I can't write as fast as you talk.
Okay, I'll find my sheet. All right, we'll go a little slower. Number one, the major theme of chapter 19 are three what? What was it, the main point? Three things we find. What were three? Main thing was three blank for king. Questions. We looked at three questions. And that was the thing that stood out in the chapter, that question. We did have a question within a question where they said, if that's the case, a man should not marry, but that was a question relating to his question on relationship. Well, the first question he asked was a question about, I think I kind of gave it away. What? Talking about relationships, married and unmarried. The first thing we know about the answer Jesus gave on the what relationship? First one? Marriage. He tells us about three things. And I'll probably go back over these, so I might tell you. When he said male and female, what is that? It starts with a C. Y'all guess that one? Brother Tony works and stuff, and the parts are called what? Components. Male, man, wife, and child. That's the components. And by the way, how important is that today? Since we live in a day and time, they don't know that. That was just kind of logical. The second thing, when you get married, what is that called? It's called a marriage, start to see. Covenant. Covenant affects between you and God too, not just a contract. And then the third thing, when he said, do not commit fornication and adultery, what are those? What is the adultery? It's one of the 10 what? Commandments. By the way, these commandments were given to protect marriage. You know, you cannot break these two things and it not affect who you marry. It's God has put that in there not to keep men from enjoying life, but to restrain men so that they would not go outside the boundaries that would actually be very detrimental. Second thing we know about these relationships, the answer Jesus gave on, and this is not the marriage relationship, what's the other one? Unmarried or marriedless, I had put it in there. Single. Tells us that some people are eunuchs, but what's the first reading? The eunuchs. Have no physical attraction for the opposite sex. Born that way. Second one, what did they do to people they took in captivity, put in the courts where they'd be women? Made them eunuchs. Okay? They would alter them. And then the third thing if you want to serve the Lord, you did it voluntarily, willingly. So a person can do that. That's not the typical way, but you can do that. And Paul mentions that. And he says why. The third question was a question about what? And this was a question about what we just went over. What must I do to have eternal life was the question. So what was it about?
Religion?
Religion. Good answer. I want to have me a Jeopardy board up here, Brother Danny, and keep points and divide you in two sides, and each week, and then if you bring a visitor, they get extra points, Brother Danny. All right. And Michael, you just accumulated a bunch of points. I mean, two visitors this morning I saw, and thank you for bringing them. And the first thing said about what he does is called what? It's also an F. Feats. What you do. What he accomplished. Okay? He kept letting youth up, which include the commandments that are, there are two kind of commandments he gave. The first one he listed, they are the ones that are, talking to him, mentioned. And the second one, he didn't mention, they're the missing. I mean, the Lord named all the commandments and left out. Miss Sheila, I would think that's, okay, that's on 6 feet. The second one is mentioned in the law. Commandments that are mentioned. The next one, and the missing commandments. Y'all good except for? Okay. 7. The second thing that stands out about this is the, first we talked about his feet, then we talked about his what?
Faith.
Faith. Jesus said, get rid of everything, trust me. That's his faith. Two things we noted about what did this man, he was a riches. The second thing we noted, did he just say, oh yeah, I'll be glad to do that? I put an all word, resistance. No, I can't do that. I'm leaving. He went away sorrowfully. So he resisted what the Lord told him. Third question we asked, this is a question about disciples, and the question said, we've taken all and following me. Oh, you should maybe get this one. It's on the board. First thing we observe about these rewards is the what? Giving them authority. The what kind of authority? Right? Positions. You'll have positions. You'll rule and reign over the 12 tribes. So positions. Second thing he talked about was they would have an abundance as to what? On the board. Talk to the people. Possessions. I mean, you're going to have 100-fold. And, top it all off, Miss Sheila, this would be your love. Somebody would give you $100 million. You'd put it in the bank and die. Can't spend it. If you don't have life, you don't have possessions. But we'll have eternity to enjoy what he gives us. Then he said this, and I go with him. The last shall be first, what he said. And these are the church. Miss Sheila, when the rapture comes, we go in to be with the Lord in his kingdom. So we go first. You know. We're the church age saints. The church age saints go first. And then we're the last to get into the kingdom, but we'll be the first. And then before the tribulation, and she'll be first in the kingdom. Number 12, the first shall be last as the Black Testament saints. Old Testament. They are resurrected. They're brought into the kingdom after the tribulation period. So they were the first, but they're going to be the last to enter the kingdom. We were the last, but we're going to be the first. Now you'll see it's very interesting. I'll do that. You'll see it's very interesting in the next chapter. He says that again. And I'll go ahead and give you just a little heads up on it. I call it the provisions of this king. There's some things that he provided in this chapter, uniquely provided. How many of y'all ever heard of the parable of the vineyard? Yeah. And before we think too bad of some of them people that fussed about whether they got paid, I'm not sure that most Baptists I know would not like it. They said, I don't know why you did that for them, you should have done. Well, what is that? What you should say, man, I'm just glad you did the job. Right? I was out there, you came by, you hired me, you paid me just like you said. Thank you for the job, but they kind of got upset. But we'll look at that next week. Any questions so far on anything? I'm sending right here to refer to Brother Denny. I will say this, Brother Danny, this worked for me. You have to be careful on the computer, okay? But I have looked up stuff, Miss Sheila, and there's some good Bible sources. They're usually the only one that deals with it. So I look up something like, what is a husband? And I just mentioned to see, what does that mean? Where did it come from? It actually goes, you ever heard of a husbandman? What's that? A farmer, agriculture. It really means a tiller of the soil, a provider. Man is to provide. In fact, the Bible says a man that won't provide for his household is worse than a what? Two things that, because I'm old, brothers, don't really bother me. A man that will not work. I just hate to see that. Well, the Bible says worse than that. Get out there, but I can't get the position. When I come along, when you ever come along, if they hired us to work in a picking peas, we took the job. We took the job we could take until we could get a better job. Nah, I ain't working that place. They don't pay me enough. So I'm going to sit home. And they're all, I'm going to let Brother Tony work and feed my young ones. No. But we got to feed the young ones, so that's kind of. So, number one. Number two, I have no use for a man. Now, I would love him and try to help him, but that's kind of a real problem I have. If you won't work, a man that won't work, a woman that won't work. Now, John's wife doesn't work. She stays home and keeps those two boys. That is more than work. That is still work. I mean, work outside the home. The second thing is a man that will hit a woman. You remember that rap star that it showed the picture where he's dragging this woman down the hall and he's kicking her and he's dragging her? Remember that? If I had walked up on that brother Jim, I'd have probably shot that man.
I would have to.
I mean, he's a soulless one. I don't think he's going to kill her. But I'm glad I didn't walk up on it. They probably put me in jail. Let him go. Come on. But what I'm trying to say, that's two things. So the man and the wife, so we'll look at that later. We have different, we're really equal but different roles. You know, we're on the same team. And sometimes the wife has to step in because the husband don't and take over the role that he probably should take. But those two things kind of bother. Is that old school? Is it all right to hit a woman?
No.
In fact, I just tell you, don't let your children hit a girl. Place to start. They grow up hitting a girl, they're going to keep hitting the girl. Teach them, no, you don't do that. Because boys are strong, right? That's why you can't put them in sports together. Questions? But then comments? You ready to go? Let's pray. Father, thank you for all the blessings now. Give us a good time together in the house of God.